actually do is with the personality that you've actually understand. Hopefully, we can talk about leadership, the different types of leadership and the importance of leadership and how we could link the personality and leadership itself. Now, if you can, let's just listen to this. I'm not sure if you can listen on the other side, yeah? Ibu Lucy boleh dengar enggak? Boleh.
Video ya, Miss. Kayaknya belum deh.
Can you hear? Okay, tak apa. Maybe kita just tengok sahaja, kita discuss, ya? Just observe, ya?
Recording in progress.
Ini menunjukkan mereka berada di universiti, cikgu mengajar dan mereka semua memakai face mask. So there's no voice, just sound, so don't worry. So what it is saying, basically the pawn, when you play chess, the pawn is the most useless. It is for people to take advantage of the pawn. Pawn yang paling kecil itu tadi.
Ibu Asma on mute.
Oh, Masya Allah, I've been talking on my own earlier.
Yeah,
Oh
sorry,
my
I was
goodness.
also I went
No, yeah,
upstairs to
because you
sort out
muted
the problem.
everyone earlier.
Yeah. Sorry.
Okay, no worries, no worries. Thank you. So now I was just saying, my question to them was, what was the video earlier? What was I trying to show? Basically, was about our own very personality. Yeah, our own personality. Where we go out there, we tend to be a different person. We tend to be more idealistic. We tend to be not the real us. And we tend to be, hiding lots of things. And when we talk about personality, this is as what you see on screen. It basically refers to the enduring characteristics and behavior that comprise of a person's unique adjustment to life. So when I talked about life, so it's basically how one take in, during their life experiences and what they show to people. This include traits, their interests, their drives, what motivates them, their values, their self-concept. So what is self-concept? I will actually explain to you in a bit, their abilities and emotional patterns. So when we talk about adjustment to life, what it is really is when we actually refer to when you were, how you were actually being raised by your parents. Yesterday, I was on TV3 in Malaysia. So when we talk about hak seorang anak ataupun what are your rights as a human being, as a child. So when we talk about your rights, yeah, so we talk about your rights to love, your rights for education, your rights to having parents that really understand what is going on in your life, but not necessarily everybody gets that. So when we talk about unique adjustment to life, everybody has different experiences in life. Everybody is being, developed into someone or rather an adult, and as you are now, and that is what you based on, like your schemata, your self-concept. So when we talk about self-concept, I just want to relate to you a story. When I was a little girl, that was a story of my own. Yeah, I always thought that the little dog is called Chihuahua, right? So I always thought that the Chihuahua is a cat, because no one told me that Chihuahua is not a dog. So when I was a little girl, I wanted to touch that Chihuahua because it's just so cute and fluffy. No, that is another one, but Chihuahua is the one without that fur. But I thought it was a cat without fur, so I thought it was very cute. So if my friend were not able, because my parents never informed me of that, they just kept quiet. But what I'm trying to say is, if I were not able to ask friends, or my friends did not even tell me, so I would have believed until today that Chihuahua is a cat. So your schemata towards life, what is your understanding, will be based on what you have actually experienced before. Yeah. So when we talk about traits and when we talk about personality, are traits and personality the same? It could be, but when we talk about traits are usually what, personality is the way you think, the way you behave, the way you feel. That is basically your psychological makeup, I could say that. But when we talk about traits, it's always panjang, masanya lebih panjang. So it becomes your traits ataupun that is you. People know that, oh, okay, if you do this, so that is your traits. That is your personality put together, but it will have to be after a long period of time. Yeah. I'm sure you know your interests. So when we talk about interest is also part of personality. So everybody has different interests. But I just want to talk to you about who you are now as a person, whether you are probably in UB doing psychology, is that really your interest, or is that the interest of your parents? Yeah. So because oh, sorry, ada seorang bertanya, enggak ya? But when we talk about interest, it's probably about, when somebody wants to, my interest was I wanted to become a doctor, a medical doctor. So that was what I was interested in really. I was really good in math. I was really good in science. But my dad, so, we have parents. So but my dad told me that, hey, no, you should go for medical. because my dad is just are often very busy, so you stay home, you become a teacher. And I don't want to become a teacher. That is not my interest. I'm like, no, I'm not going to become a teacher. But as I grow up, I still want to become a doctor, which I could, but my dad persuaded me to do, and I went abroad, I went to Australia to do valuation and property. So it's business. So when I did that, I came. So when we talk about interest, I wasn't happy because that is not what I like, right? So I am not motivated to do that. It's okay, Dr. Omar, no worries. So I was not motivated to do what I like. What I am currently doing before, yeah, not now. So then I realized so I sell insurance. Do you know, after coming back from Australia, I did not like what I do. So I did, because I like to speak to people. So I sell insurance, I did unit trust, but that's not my interest. Then I realized in order for me to go to medicine, it's going to be very difficult because at that point of time, I'm already 28, 29. So, but I still have that interest. Then I realized my main intention is to help people. So I channel back my interest to what I like. And I wanted to become a doctor, helping people become a counselor, educational psychologist, or counsel psychologist, as I call myself. That is what I could still do. And I can still get my doctor in terms of if I pursue my PhD. So at the end of the day, that's what drives me to become who I am today, because I'm motivated to assist people to get my PhD, to get a doctor. And I still fulfill like what my dad wants. I'm a So if you see, life makes things very interesting. You don't plan for it, but it just falls into place. Now, personality and values. Show 23, 24. Okay, never mind. Maybe 21 ya. S berapa? S1 ya. Undergraduate ya. So maybe, so at this point of time, the way you look at things, the way you look at life is very different. As my own children, I have 3 children that is university going. They are not very much interested in monetary and material things. And that's okay, because that's what they value now. But as you mature in life, as you realize that monetary is not everything, what you want, what you value, what you value is basically giving back to society. What you value is happiness. Just excuse me, I need to drink water. Yeah. So what you value is basically giving back to society. What you value is having inner peace. What you value is family time. So that differs to each and every individual. So it doesn't matter. So I've already talked about self-concept. What is it that you experience, and then your understanding based on your experiences. Abilities. Most of us did not realize our potential. If I were to ask you, Eugenia, now that I see you here and you look so gorgeous there, what is your weakness? If you may answer me. Do you have any weaknesses? Anybody for that matter in chat? Do you have any weakness? Ni. Tak ada weakness ya, baguslah anak-anak UPN ni. Okay, but generally, okay, never mind. So I'll just explain, okay? Generally, if we talk about people's ability, so for example, when we talk about weaknesses, you probably will say, oh, I'm not good, I overthink. My weaknesses is I'm not good in math, I'm not good in this, I'm not good in that. So everybody will start talking about their inability, but not many people can talk about their strengths. So usually, Eugenia, you try this at home, or even you can try that, try this to your friends later, yeah? You will realize that when you ask them, what's your weaknesses? Or what is your weakness or weaknesses? They will answer you almost immediately. But if you ask them, what are your strengths? Then they'll be like, Do I even have that? Yeah, they will take time. You can recognize that. Well, don't ask those who have actually attended my lecture, but you can actually ask those, your other friends perhaps. You see the pattern. So
Recording
what?
stopped.
Okay, now what I am going to conclude here is one, we are all magnet to negativity, yeah, and Teflon. I think you guys have that non-stick. We call it Teflon. When you goreng the egg, fry the egg, and the egg is very happy and jiggly, and they can just wee and fly off the pan. So that's called Teflon. Are we all not Teflon to positivity? Now, what we need today is to basically understand our capabilities, that we are all able body, that we are capable, that we are all magnets to positivity and Teflon to negativity. So if it's negative, it's just like, it's just going to go and fly by, okay? You're not going to be bothered about that. Now, that is what made up our total personality, yeah? Again, adjustment to life, major traits, interests, and most importantly, also is your emotional patterns. That what makes us as a person. I too was young before. Okay, once upon a time, I like your glasses, Eugene. Now you're sleeping. Okay. Once upon a time, I can't help it but to observe. Once upon a time, I was also very young. So I do have this, what you call that, emotional, what do you call that, moody. Okay. Sometimes a little bit moody, but now as you mature in life, you can control. Perhaps later I can actually share with you what this is all about. Now, let's talk about this. Basically, the first theory that I'm going to share with you, the first personality theory, that is what we know as the personality structure by Freud. Oh, again, I muted. Okay. Now I have to repeat again. So now when I was actually saying that when we talked about personality means the personality structure by Sigmund Freud. Why is that so? Because he's the first one. We call him Bapa psychology, right? The father of psychology. Although some of whatever that he brings together with his theory that we don't agree, but I think this is very interesting. And this actually can jive with our personality. As you can see on screen, it talks about id, ego, and superego. Id tadi ialah sepertinya apa? Sepertinya syaitan ataupun kita panggil the daredevil. The instinct is your instinct. Ego is your reality and superego is your morality. Allow me to explain to you a little bit, yeah. It is considered as the bad boy. You see the bad boy? Ada ekornya, ada tanduknya. So it is actually the bad boy of our subconscious. I'm sure you have studied. Eugenia pernah dengar kan the personality structure of, you sudah belajar ya, so kiranya saya explain sedikit saja. So it's the bad boy our subconscious. Is the impulsive part. All of us, however kita ni dah adult ataupun sudah menua, sudah tua, we still have this inside us. For example, I'll give you an example. Whatever that I want it fast. Okay, and one of my student is actually here, Lia namanya, my research assistant. She knows that I work fast. So I want everything, not today, not now, but yesterday. So that is the instinct, or rather the bad boy or the bad girl of my subconscious. So for example, if you want something, you want things not to be delayed, you want instant gratification. So that is what we are referring to our id. Now, ego has always, poor ego has always been mistaken for the bad boy, but actually ego is the good boy, because we are actually in the conscious, we are in the reality. Ego lies in between your instincts and your superego. It's actually a constant struggle. It's like, we call it adulting, right? If you can relate with the young ones, right, we call it adulting. It's actually a struggle to balance between the two forces of making pleasurable decisions, that is the eat. Because in whatever we do, we want it fast, we want it good, we want the extremes of everything. Yeah. And it's, you know, it's very difficult trying to be what you call that, ego, because it talks about you trying to manage. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, correct. So ego is basically, is about struggling to balance the pleasurable eat and also the police, the moral police of super ego. Okay, do you know that super ego is the moral police? Eugenia, for example, if you want to take somebody else's food, and you buy it, no, 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 I'm not going to do that because that's just not nice. If you are doing your assignments, for example, I'm not going to use Chat GPT because Chat GPT is not okay. So that is your moral police. Okay. Yeah. So, but what the super ego or the morality basically does is also unconsciously, it is both in conscious and unconscious. Say, oh, enough.
Recording in
Okay, enough,
progress.
because otherwise you'll fall sick. All right. So ego is always the one that is staying in reality, but Elia was talking about super ego. Now, I just want to check with you and make sure that you understand Freud and personality. How does Freud ideas influence the way how we all of you knows about the psychosexual stages? So you are all very well versed with psychosexual stages, which I think most of us, or not us, but maybe some of us, perhaps are not agreeable to Freud's psychosexual stages. But let's not go there. Let's just focus on, as the picture you mentioned, you saw on screen. It talks about birth or the oral stage. It talks about the anal stage, and it also talks about phallic latency and genital. Well, Freud believes that most of our personality has been formed by the time we are 5 years old. At the age of 5, okay, at the age of 5 years old, a child has gone through the oral. Kan kita minum susu, kita udah minum susunya kan? So sebenarnya what we are trying to do at this time, what we are doing is basically has gone through the oral, anal, and the phallic stages. So when you actually go through these stages, they will develop into fixations. So these fixations, ini yang Freud katakan, yang tidak semestinya disetujui ataupun has been agreed by people. The oral fixations will make you, or rather cause you, if you do not get it enough, what you wanted to do is that you're probably going to smoke. You're going to start smoking, or you're probably going to have problems with eating disorder, perhaps. Okay, for example, the anal stage, if you fail to master potty training, then you may be a lazy person. Okay, that's what they believe in. And it goes on, which I don't feel that is quite right personally. So like I said, not everybody perhaps follow what Freud or agrees with Freud. Now, let's just move on to another personality theory. So this is one of the assessment that we actually use. This is the big 5 personality traits. I've already mentioned to you that traits and personality is almost the same, but traits are those that you have actually used to certain behaviors or emotions or cognitively, or rather the thinking patterns, and that is what makes your trait, because it should be in a longer period. Yeah. So now let's talk about the big 5. This is another theory that we are going to talk about. The big 5 model is also known as the 5-factor model, and this is most widely accepted. And usually recently I just went to Petronas. I'm sure you know Petronas Twin Tower, but this Petronas, the oil and gas. So I trained 100 people there, and I also just came back from Bank Negara Malaysia, the central bank. So I trained about more than 100 people there on what toxicity at work. I also talk about profiling. So this could also be one of the profiling to understand their personality, their way, how they actually lead. Yeah, because this is also very important that you can understand the big five personality traits and link that to your leadership skills. So when we talk about profiling, what is profiling? We are actually profiling most of the time leaders. What we are lacking is we do not begin profiling earlier during universities. I have actually conducted profiling early on when my children were in school. So I was also the PTA. In fact, I was the president. So what I did was I helped the schools to start profiling the children as young as 13 years old. Profiling in the sense that we want to know their interests, their learning styles, we want to see their potentials. So I could say now that the children are already in universities. When we did the profiling, about 80 to 90%, we've got it right in the sense that we have actually assisted where these children, or rather these students, should go and could go, depending on what their traits are, their personality is. So this is okay. Okay, so this is one of the most interesting thing that I love to work with. Now, as you could see, the traits here is basically conscientiousness, agreeableness, neuroticism, openness to experience. So when we talk about openness to experience, yeah, before you could even lead, yeah, you should actually identify with yourself. What you should know is to understand self. Apabila kamu semua udah faham diri kamu, barulah kamu boleh bantu orang lain ataupun become a great leader. Okay, but you first need to lead yourself. So when we talk about openness to experience, my students usually ask me, Dr. Aziz, gimana nak maksud dia open? I said open means you do not just conclude, or rather you do not just allow yourself to think about things based on your experience, but you open to other things. Although openness to experience ni orangnya sangat mungkin ini yang kita katakan perbezaan practicality versus those who likes to imagine experience, whether you are very routine based or not. So these are the things that we could actually see. So the big five ni, this test, or rather this instrument, this test, psychological testing, has been how I can say it can be said that it has remained stable in most of one's lifetime. Maksudnya, if you have done this, you may ask me, Dr. Aziz, mungkin ada perubahan tak? Mungkinkah saya boleh berubah tak? Ada pertukaran tak? Mostly, it will be very constant. Ataupun mostly, it will be very stable. Yeah. So interestingly, let's go next. Now you could see the continuum. Okay. So when we're talking about continuum. So, but before that, allow me to just explain to you that what it is really when we talk about this extroversion, or rather versus introversion. Allow me to actually explain this. Yeah, in terms of personality, I'm an extroverted kind of person where I like to seek excitement. I like to be with people, and I'm easily approachable. And I probably, do not withdraw from people. But what I'm trying to say here, in every traits that you see here, every what do you call that, the big five personality here, yeah, neuroticism, extroversion, dia ada dia punya what do you call that, spectrum, or dia ada dia punya menyebabkan you have your high or your lows. So this is very interesting because then you could see and understand whether, for example, we talk about openness study, whether you want to see because when you talk about continuum, we want to see whether you are we are never the extreme. Usually we are not that extreme. Whether you are open yet you are a little bit probably close-minded, but not too close-minded. That's what it meant by spectrum. Maksudnya dia ada garisan itu. Macam saya, ambil contoh. When I talk about extroverted, yes, I am extroverted, but there are times, especially during Hari Raya, if you come and visit my house, all of a sudden you see, where is Dr. Aziz? I'll be missing because I'm not going to be there already. I'll be hiding in my room. So what I'm trying to say here is, although I'm an extroversion, probably I'm not the extreme, but I could be somewhere slightly more than half, but probably 3/4 of that spectrum. I think you understand what I'm trying to say, yeah? So, and now let's talk about agreeableness. So agreeableness, we always talk about being agreeable or probably the extreme is being hostile or very deceitful or rather very manipulatious. You sangat anyway. And whether you are also spontaneous, that is another continuum. Yeah, like what you could say here. The decision make probably is very rash, and probably the low is you're very easily distracted. You're probably irresponsible. But my conscientiousness probably is very high because I know even Ibu Lucy ada dalam ini ya. Ibu Lucy dan saya selalu berbual di waktu pagi. Waktu pagi kamu tidur, kami berbual. So be reminding each other, tidur, ibu, tidur. Probably we don't want to declare ourselves as workaholic because that's not healthy. But probably we have high in terms of conscientiousness. Yeah, faham jelas ya? So interestingly, I would like to also bring you to what do you call that? Neuroticism. I think neuroticism is something that's very, let's just go one by one, yeah? Let's go back to conscientiousness. So if you do not have a very good conscientiousness, you probably have lack of direction. So when we talk about lack of direction means you maybe struggle with impulse control. This will lead you as a leader to having difficulty in completing tasks. And kalau nak menjadi seorang leader, you have to plan, you have to fulfill goals, you have to be more organized. So this is when you do this basic, what do you call that, big five personality, you could see whether you are probably very organized or disorganized. Now let's talk again about agreeableness. The high side is probably straightforwardness. Yeah, compliance, very modest, you have very high empathy, but the low part is when you could be very stubborn. So as a leader, although now we're not talking about leader, as a person, leader later kan, as a person, what I'm trying to say is probably, it's very easy for you to be sarcastic. It's very easy for you to demand, like eat tadi tu kan. So you can see there is connections there. Openness, let's talk about, I think you understand extroversion. I'm not going to go there. Openness is probably when you open, you are very imaginative, you're creative, you're very curious. But when you are not, when you're having low score, you don't like change. And it's very common for people to not like change. I have a student, I just want to share with you, my student, who have a very brilliant idea in terms of doing, programming, a program and getting everybody involved from undergraduates, yeah, daripada year 1 up to year 4. But most of them resist change. So I have to step in and tell them that change is inevitable, meaning change is something that it happens. Look at you now. Were you not once upon a time a small little girl? Look at you now. Sekarang udah ada misai, udah ada apa orang kata, udah pandai pakai makeup. Don't you all change? So why are we so resistant to change? Now let's talk about neuroticism. I think this is what I would like to discuss most. Yeah. So just look at ourselves. Neuroticism ini apa? It describes the overall emotion, stability, bukan lability. Salah eja di situ ya, maaf. It talks about the overall emotional stability of the individual through how they perceive the world. Di sini, your perception plays a role. Okay, your perception. It's very simple. I'm not sure if you can see this. Maybe I put here. Okay, maybe you can see this. If I ask you a question, what is this? You may say, oh, this is tutupnya merah. You can say air. You can say botol. Some may say glass. Some may say different things. It is all made up of your perceptions towards life. It's made up from your self-concept, from your schemata. So a lot of things and how you seek the world, perceive the world. So sometimes, as a person, when you have very much emotion, too much emotions, just look at yourself. Look at how you perceive the world as one to be so very threatening. Yeah. So when you have high neuroticism, yang ini dia terbalik ya. Yang tadi itu kalau positif bagus, maksudnya high is good. But for neuroticism, if you have high neuroticism, maksudnya you become neurotic. So you become angry easily. Okay, anger easily, hostile, sikit-sikit irritated, anxious. You experience a lot of stress. You experience self-conscious. You conscious, boleh ke buat macam ni? Macam saya tadi very self-conscious. Because I see that the camera is not clear. I change tudung, 3 times. I change my, apa ini panggil? Tutup kepalanya ini. Saya tukar 3 kali, self-conscious. But I'm not shy. I just want to be outstanding. I want you guys to see me. And maybe you could also be vulnerable. Very vulnerable means whatever, being vulnerable, but if you're too vulnerable, so then it will not be helpful. So now, low, you don't worry much. You know how to take care of yourself. Emotionally, you are stable, you're confident, you're resilient. So what does resilient means? Resilient means you could actually get up from whenever you fall, like COVID-19. Look at all of us. Aren't we all resilient? Because we're still alive and kicking. We are kicking. We are alive and kicking. That's what I always say. What do I mean by that? Because if you were not anxious before, which is the positive part of neuroticism, if we look at it, so anxiety is good in a way because it makes us alive. If you are not anxious, you wouldn't put on the mask. Then probably you're no longer going to be around. If you're not anxious, you will not listen to what your kerajaan say, your government said. So now, isn't that resilient? Because we all fall. We experience how difficult it is to learn online. But look at us now. We are all very much resilient. You ask me to do this, I can do it online. But I still prefer the traditional way of teaching. Now, I just want to talk to you about Maslow. This is another theory, or rather, we can call it Carl Rogers. I'm sure you know about this. I'm going to go through this very quickly because I see that time is really not on my side. I have another 1 hour plus, so I need to talk about this. When we talk about humanistic, now it's all about humane. It's no longer about, there is Freud, but usually it's more about cognitive. It's all about humanistic perspective or personality. So all of us, so Abraham Maslow, I love this theory because it talks about your needs, it talks about your safety, your love and belonging, your self-esteem and it talks about self-actualization. Maslow talks about how people have an inborn desire to be self-actualized. What does he mean by that? What is he trying to say is that we all want to do what we can do to achieve the ultimate goal. We have to meet that. The ultimate goal is that definitely the self-actualization, but we have to go through the process of having all this. So that is why in life, the personality, the journey, you see, kan? Wheelchair tu kan? So what it's basically trying to say is you have to get support from your family. You have to get that safety. You have to have that sense of belonging, the love, the self-esteem to give yourself a boost. And we are going to talk about leadership in a bit. So how are you going to be a great leader if you don't even understand these concepts of having love? Is actually very important for you to feel love in order for you to provide love for all. Look at all the great leaders. They are all very empathical. They are all feelers, not necessarily feelers. They're also thinkers. But what I'm trying to say, they're all empathize. They understand. So when we also talk about, let's just focus on the self-actualization. At the very peak of self-actualization, this is when we are all aware. Okay, if I were to ask you, now that I see Eugene is eating pizza probably, what do you have for lunch? Usually you will say, oh, I have nasi, or I remember I miss my ayam bebek. Just recently I went to UNESA, I had a lot of bebek every day, bebek. So I miss bebek apa, bebek sintu, bebek sincha, I forgot the name. So anyway, so what I'm trying to say is, when you talk about lunch, usually your reply will be sedap, enak, itu sahaja. But were you aware what you just had? Were you aware that every bite that you eat, were you aware how it tastes like? Now just think a moment. So if I were to ask you, those who drink coffee, most of us are coffee lovers. I know Ibu Lucy, mungkin Ibu Dewi juga suka kopi ya. Ibu Lucy pun ada kedai sendiri ya, kedai kopinya. Jadi kan, bila kamu minum kopi, kamu minum laju-laju kah? Enggak kan? Coffee you have to drink very slowly, taste, smell. So that's how when you are aware. If I were to ask you, did you realize, were you aware what car were driving in front of you earlier? Or rather, if you naik basikal, apa itu basikal ya? Bicycle. So were you aware what bicycle was actually parked next to your car? Bicycle. Were you aware of the people around you even? Were you aware that the lift that you took earlier, how many buttons were there? How many lifts were there? Then this is what Maslow is trying to do. Self-actualizing people are mostly self-aware. They are always very concerned on self-growth. So those leaders, before you become leader, you have to lead yourself. You need to understand your personal growth. Kamu kena tahu bagaimana hendak bangunkan diri kamu menjadi lebih baik. And we are not even bothered with the concerns of other people around us. We are only interested in fulfilling our potentials. Okay, just a little bit of psychology, yeah. I know we're talking about personality because I kept saying we're not bothered, we're not supposed to need, but I don't want to talk about toxic positivity. I'm sure you know what toxic positivity means. It means that you do not allow for yourself to feel anger, to feel bad, to feel sad. That's not what I'm saying. All I'm asking is validate that feeling. It's okay. You feel sad, so what? Feel sad. You feel marah, so what? Feel marah. But marah, anger, do not change it or turn it or transform it into rage. Rage kan dalam personality structure itu di bawah, unconscious. Do not change that to rage. From neuroticism becomes psychotic, sorry. Neurotic becomes psychotic. That's different. So now, be aware that you are allowed to be upset, but not too long. Okay, so what it says is Maslow's state of self-actualization basically is make full use and exploit your talents, your capability, your potentialities. So that is why I asked you tadi, what is your strength? What is your weakness? But usually people will answer me strength lambat. They will take time to answer. Do I even have strength? Do I even have capabilities? Now I want you to change and start appreciating self, start remembering and recognizing that, hey, you are capable, that you are good. That is why you are doing in UB. You think it's so easy to get into university? Not everybody can go into universities, right? So aren't you guys good students? Yes, you are. Now, when we talk about progressing, this is when that is what he's trying to show, progressing from the very low level, one way up. Okay, so this is when we talk about prioritization. Now, let's start. Oops, what happened to my slide? Okay.
Looks like it went to the beginning again.
Yeah, okay, now we're here. So, okay, the slide is better?
Yep. Social cognitive theories now.
Okay, now social cognitive theory. There's a lot of theory, but I chose only a few to make sure that you understand before I talked about the what you call that, leadership. Yeah. So when we talk about social cognitive theory, this is very important by Albert Bandura. I'm sure you know about the modeling, the Bobo doll. Yeah. I'm sure you know about operant conditioning. I'm sure you know about classical conditioning. Well, I don't want to go there. I just want to talk about social cognitive theory, which emphasizes on personal, the behavior and the environmental factors. As you can see here, it talks about how, it actually talks about how who we are is because of who and how we interact with others. It's basically about your social networking. People are the agents who can both influence and are influenced by the environments. So you are the agent of influencing others without you realizing. So as a great leader, later, we talk about later, but I'm going to just say now, as a good leader, for yourself, you need to recognize that you are the ones that can take actions. Yeah, you are the ones that can influence yourself. Yeah. So one assumption is that what we do is we always observe. This is the Bobo dog. Is observe. It also talk about positivity. So it talks about how you take care of yourself. So now let's just talk about I think you know about the Bobo dolls, right? Bobo dolls is like modeling. So what it is basically two groups of students. They are exposed to, I mean, they were actually in a room. So they are both exposed to videos. One watch videos and they punch the Bobo doll, and the video shows that you have to take turn. The other one is aggressive. So you could see that the aggressive behavior included verbal insults and physical violence, slapping, punching. They actually followed what the videos so what it's trying to say is we all are results of modeling our parents. We are also results of observing others. So what we do is we always observe the people around us. But again, remember when I said we are all magnet to negativity? So we observe, but we didn't realize that we follow and take in those negative behaviors, which we should have recognized that this is actually not the good, not a good way of doing it. Now, when we also talk about this theory, we talk about attention, we talk about retention, we talk about motor reproduction and motivation. So what is attention really? It is about you paying attention to the behavior and the consequences and form a mental representation of the behavior. So what I'm trying to say, if you have a good model or role model that you follow, then you will focus on the salient or noticeable behaviors, and you will definitely follow that. It will usually be very attractive, yeah, prestigious for you to follow, and you will pay attention. So when we talk about retention very simple. You retain means you simpan, you store the observed behavior. If your family, you are surrounded with friends that is kaki pukul, sikit-sikit je slap, sikit-sikit je pukul, you definitely retain those kind of behavior, and you feel that it is the right way to do it. For example, when I was actually talking about I appeared on TV yesterday. I was talking about how the family a vicious life cycle because they observed the parents were always fighting. So the mom was always being slapped. So when you actually have your own family, if you're a boy, you feel that it's okay to slap your wife because that's what your father does. So you retain that. You follow words, you follow pictures, you follow gestures. Now, motor reproduction is how you could physically reproduce, means you do it. So when you do it. But now I want you to change it to motivate yourself, which is the final one, to motivate to have and perform a very good behavior. Motivation to change. Motivation to have the desire to achieve a goal, to avoid punishment, to achieve a goal that you can become a great leader, for you to be effective. Effective reaction. Effective kan emotions kan. So if you have a good thoughts, that will definitely make you affect how you feel. That will about quite a number of theories. Now let's talk about what it is. What this is basically is about the cross culture, yeah. Cross culture perspectives on personality. So basically, what we do, what we learn, what we are actually doing is we're observing differences and personalities across cross culture. For example, you are Indonesians, I'm Malaysians. If we see the similarities, we can see the similarities. Orangnya budaya kita adalah sangat hormat kepada orang. Itu adalah similarities. So we can identify Indonesian, Malaysian, no matter what, is learned or inherited behavior. Yeah, that we are all menghormati. The differences is probably in terms of cara kita makan, cara kita berpakaian, cara kita berinteraksi, percakapan, itu saja yang berbeza. Yeah, so this is very interesting when we try to understand the differences or similarities that we have from people within different culture. When we talk about culture, it is not necessarily Malaysia, Indonesia, but it's also about culture, adolescence culture, I deal a lot with adolescents and women. I talk to women who were being abused. I talk to those, because my research is actually vast. I don't really focus on one area, but although my area is basically women, work, career related, and also adolescents, but I also involved in drug. So when I actually see their culture is different. Yeah, when they say rindu itu, rindu missing someone, but this is missing something, so it means differently. So this is very important for you to understand how the different culture makes up different personality. Now, the question that you may or probably ask me, now this is very interesting. Okay, so when we talk about self-discovery process, how do you self-discover yourself? First, most importantly, is for you to take charge and identify with yourself. Remember, again, I told you what it is all about: awareness. Are you aware of your capabilities? Are you aware of your strength? Are you aware of your weaknesses? Are you aware of what you have done, or how you can improve in terms of self-development? So sekarang ini ramai di antara kita yang selalunya fokus kepada negativity. Sekiranya kita change that to positivity. Although I said that we don't want you to feel positive. I mean, I don't want to say I don't want. I would love to see that you guys are positive, but it's difficult to be positive all the time. But identification of your strength. If you understand your strength. When I was a little girl, I like to share my story. I don't even know how to speak English. My family was very poor. My granny is from Indonesia. I'm also probably half Indonesian. Okay. So when they came here to Malaysia, we were very poor. Yeah. And my dad's side is from Thailand. So then they all reside. One Thailand, one Indonesia, reside in Malaysia. Okay, but very funny. Anyway, let's not go there. Then I don't really understand English, but my father always taught me that it's very important for you to understand the language, for you to be internationally renowned. He always have this thought that I am going to be one day, or even my family, my siblings, going to be one day, successful to change the economics of the family. And I was very scared. And I know that my weaknesses is I can't speak the language. I'm very bad in speaking the language. I just don't even know when people ask me. I remember when I was 7 years old, my friends asked me, "What is your name?" I cannot even answer that. Okay. And I was very scared. And you know what she did? She pinched me all the time. She pinched me until today. Nanti if saya ke sana, saya boleh tunjuk pada Ibu Lucy, Ibu Dewi, yang lain tak boleh lah. The kesan, the bekas, the scar, but not really scar lah, but bekas pink, is pink in color. Two small, this one, two small marks on my thigh until today. But I go back crying, but I want to learn. So I ask my parents, so I identify my strength. What is your name? Apa itu? Saya tanya. Ibu saya tak pandai berbahasa Inggeris, tapi dia lebih faham dari saya. Dia ajar saya. Then I develop myself. I learn the language. I speak the language. I learn and I start buying English books. And I don't have money. I save. And I develop myself to be able to speak. Then when I go abroad, and I was quite a smart girl, so Alhamdulillah, when I go abroad, I was actually potentially, but I was actually sponsored by the government to go abroad. And I realized that, hey, I can do self-mastery. So what do? One of my friends says, Azi, you can speak the language, but you always see Mat Saleh, we call it Mat Saleh, Minan Saleh, orang putih ya, kita panggil orang putih ya. Jadi bila nampak aja mereka, saya lari. Although I already know how to speak the language. But I have good friends that always tell me, you do it. You have to do it. That's how I learned the hard way. And I master the language. I speak their dialect, as in, hi, how are you? Good day, mate. I speak that way. But now that I'm in Malaysia, I speak Manglish, no longer Australian English. Okay? But what I'm trying to say is you can master. And then I realized that now I'm very self-confident. I have that self-confidence. I'm very much fulfilled. And my tank of love is now full. Why? And this is all about, it all starts from self-discovery. You probably may ask me the next question. So Dr. Aziz, is it possible for me to actually change my personality? Let's go there first. Then we're going to talk about that. Where is it? It's not there. What's the slide? Yeah, I'm going to do this slide first, yeah? Maybe you will actually ask me, Dr. Aziz, since you said that last time you were very timid, now, the question that I usually get is whether it's possible for me to change my personality. The question has interested many psychologists, many counselors for decades. And with recent research that shows that our personality are more, we are able basically to shape our personality. Like what I did, I shaped my personality. Some are inherited. Probably my extroversion is inherited because I take probably from my father. But I could also shape my personality. So is it nature or nurture? So basically, as you all know, personalities are shaped by your genetics. So that's when I say genetically, we cannot modify, but genetically, that is the part, or I called it the nature part of the equation. And we are all born with different temperaments. Look at that. Mr. Quiet, Mr. Happy, Mr. Rush, Mr. Perfect, Mr. Stubborn, Mr. Scatterbrain, Mr. Messy, Mr. Nosy. So these are all the different temperaments that I remember we have these books when we're little children, right? So now, when we talk about nurture, this is what we have throughout our lives, yeah? Nature, that is what we have. Yeah, but again, even from a very early age, you can actually identify reliable differences in how you responded to stimuli or how you handle stress. Okay, so interestingly, now let's talk about the nurture part. The temperament, I think you understand temperament, interacts with the way we are all raised. So you see, why do you feel the way? Why you are often moody? Go back to how you were being raised. If you have family background yang selalunya marah-marah, selalu sarkastik, but you decide. Semalam bila saya ditanya, Ibu Aziz, gimana kalau kamu mau keluar dari vicious cycle? Saya cakap mudah sahaja. Even in leadership, mudah sahaja. You imagine you have a box of matches. I think the young ones, do you know what matches are? Match, box of match. Okay, you susun the match. Susun lah. You arrange it. And then you start lighting up the fire. And you put it very closely to each other.